Hello, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm Kristen Bigelow-Talbert. I'm the Community Health Quality Manager at Bi-State Primary Care Association. And today I get to talk to you all about A3s. So what's an A3 anyway? It's actually an 11 by 17 piece of paper. That's where the name comes from. So it's nothing like fancy. It's just the name of a size of paper. But in the quality improvement world, it's also considered a one-page document where you can showcase your quality improvement project. You can kind of think of it as a more comprehensive PDSA and a way to really showcase what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and what the status is to other folks. Think of stakeholders or your board. It's a really good way to present your information to others. If you think about conferences when we would go in person and they'd have these poster presentations where folks would have these big posters up highlighting what they did and what they found and results, those are actually A3s. Even though they're bigger than 11 by 17, it's the same idea with the layout, one piece of paper to showcase what they're doing. So with that, please realize that the layout for an A3 is not set in stone. There are so many different types of A3s. There's no one way to do it. There's no wrong or right way to do an A3. So the layout is really something that you can customize and make to meet your needs. So when you create an A3, think about your purpose, because there are different types of A3s for different purposes. So there are proposal A3s when you want to propose something to your boss or supervisors to kind of get passed. There is a status update A3, there's project A3, there's a strategy A3, there's all kinds of different ones, and no set in stone boxes or components for each of them. So really you can make it your own. Additionally, when creating an A3, think about what software you're comfortable with. You do not want to be fighting with a software to get this done. You don't want that to be an added frustration for this whole project. So think about what you're comfortable using. It could be in PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Visio, or just a regular 11 by 17 piece of paper and a pencil. Any of those would work. Use what you're most comfortable with. And think about the pieces that you really want to include. What do you want to highlight for folks? And then leave out the fluff because you just won't have room for it. So I'm going to show you a few different layouts. There are many, many more out there, but I'm hoping that this will help you to kind of realize how customizable they can be to really meet your needs. So this is an A3 that Lean Enterprise Institute put together, and I like it because they have some nice prompts here. These are some common boxes you'll see in a lot of A3 templates. So this is kind of what they're all about. The background is really the context for the situation. What's the environment situation like? What are the contexts? What's the measure? And then the current conditions are related to that, but the current conditions really focus on what's the problem? What is the data saying? What's the anecdotal information you have? How do you know it's an issue? And then going from there down to the analysis piece, this is really where you do the root cause analysis or the fishbone diagram, whatever analysis you need to do to figure out why this problem you're seeing exists. What are some contributing factors to that problem? What are some root causes to that problem? And then from there, you would choose one of those root causes, because with any problem, there's more than one contributing factor. But here's where you would choose one of them and then figure out what strategies or solutions could be used to address it. What could we use to fix the problem? What solution makes the most sense in this case? So once you have a solution in mind, you would then go to your goals and your measures, because you want to have a measure, a key performance indicator or KPI, that will measure your project, measure actually the change that you are making. And that KPI may be a process measure, it may be a utilization measure, it may not be an outcomes measure. So I encourage you to think strongly about this, because you really want to make sure that the key performance indicator is a metric that measures the effectiveness of the change that you are doing. And while the outcomes measures, we want them to improve, that's usually the goal in all of these, that may be more appropriate as a submetrics. It may not directly measure the impact that you are doing with whatever change you're proposing. So think carefully about the measures that you use here. And then from there, you can create your action plan. Who's going to do what by when, and what's, having the status update, so you can check in, see how things are going. The follow-up is really the check and act piece of this. So how are things going? Our expected results versus what we're actually seeing. Do any tweaks need to be made? So that's how that piece goes in. This is another A3 template. We can see up here the heading is a bit different. We have our project owner, so that's whoever's kind of leading the project and taking charge of it, would be the project owner. Then you have the team for the other folks who are really having a role in this. We have our action plan, all of these pieces here that I've talked about, except for the scope of project. This is a piece that you can add to an A3 to any project where you feel that it may grow out of bounds a bit. So this is something where you can put guardrails up for your project, so that you well-intended folks who come on and say, hey, can we add X, Y, or Z to the project? You can say, that's a great idea, and we'll put it in the parking lot for later, but this is really kind of the scope of this project, and we can keep it that way. And that helps to really make sure that the project stays focused and doesn't get too big that it's unwieldy. This is an entirely different kind of A3, a strategy A3. So if you think about as an organization, as you come together and think about your mission and vision and goals, and you do the annual strategy sessions, this can be used for that, as like a thinking document to figure out how things went in the last year, what gaps we're seeing, what do we want to do for this year, and why we think it'll work. So this is a good tool for that. I often say that A3s are a more comprehensive PDSA, and this is kind of how they map out. As you can see, the planning takes up a big chunk of this, and that's because with any good quality improvement project, you will have a solid planning phase where you really think about all of the different pieces and plan it in a comprehensive way, because that will be the foundation for your quality improvement project. And then the do is really that action plan, who's going to do what by when, and then studying, looking at the actual results compared to what we expected to see. And then act or adjust is when we look at the changes again, and say, do we need to tweak anything? Does anything need to change or in order to try to get to what our original goals were? And this everyday lean project A3 is a great way to kind of look at these different components again, because they outlined here the plan, the do, the study, and adjust section. So you can really see how a PDSA maps perfectly with an A3. So you may be wondering when looking at all of these, how do I fit all of this on an 11 by 17 piece of paper? The answer is you don't. So there's going to be so much information with any quality improvement project, meeting notes, Excel spreadsheets, all of this data collection, all of this stuff, and keep all of that. Make sure you store it in a separate file somewhere, but you're not going to fit all of that into the A3. The A3 is really kind of a summary document for other folks. So you're going to want to be succinct and use visuals wherever possible, and really make it so that it's easy to understand and as short as possible, because you're simply not going to fit everything in there. So really keep it to the highlights. So key things I want you to take away. Remember that this A3 is considered a way to summarize a project for others. It's also considered a thinking project or tool, so you can use it for all kinds of different things, all kinds of different projects and purposes. It's really quite flexible. There's a bunch of different ways to format it, different software you can use, different boxes and layouts, all kinds of stuff. You can really make it meet your needs. And if you would like to know more, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. That's my email address there. I'm always happy to help. And thank you so much for watching.